So you're never going to know when you encounter a story that really changes your point of view about the world. And it can come from the mouth of somebody who's had this amazing experience that you weren't lucky enough to experience yourself. And so, like, my favorite thing about this world is the stories that people have, the stories that people share. And sometimes they don't share these stories with other people very often, or it's very painful. But if you're listening and you're curious and you're asking questions, these things come across. And usually they end, like these interviews, they end with this sort of great, wisdom about the world. And I wouldn't miss that. If I could go through life and just ask people their stories and do nothing else, that would be the best life ever. So we have that. And there's something that I've learned, that I love, and this really comes from our culture, is there's a whole way of discussing things and of arguing, not interrupting people, allowing them to finish what they're saying, because interrupting someone and stopping their process of thinking is so intrusive and so uncivilized. You wait for them to finish, you let some time go by, and then you ask questions, or you give your response, and they wait. And I just don't see that in this society that we live in. People talking over each other, people having no respect. So.
Sweet. Now, I did not properly introduce you as far as your heritage. You are Iroquois, Mohawk, and your clan is?
Turtle Clan.
Yes, just like me. The most beautiful creature on the planet. And your home reservation is Akwesasne, up in Hogansburg, but we found out there's no Hogans actually live there, so they renamed it Akwesasne, where partridge drum. Now, you have been all over the world, but where is your favorite place on the planet?
Wow. I've been very fortunate to be able to travel so many places. And one of my favorite places to be was, I lived for 3 years in Japan. And I got to climb to the top of Mount Fuji 3 times, or I got to try to climb to the top of the Mount Fuji 3 times, but I made it twice. And at the top of one of these huge peaks, there's so much peace. It's one of the most beautiful places. I loved Japanese culture. I loved some of the stories and some of the things that we needed to learn. And let's see, of the places in the world that I've lived and visited, we've lived in Japan. My father was in the army, so we moved around a lot. And so we lived in Japan for 3 years. And, we lived in Arizona, Colorado, California, Virginia, pretty much every state there is, with only a few exceptions. Like, we didn't live in Alaska, and that would have been cool too. But, and then countries that I visited for work as a software developer, I've gotten to go to Russia, to Romania, to Denmark, to England, to Spain. And so I've gotten to sort of really experience some other countries. And we also went on a trip to Italy with a bunch of Mohawks. That was a really amazing trip to watch the canonization of Saint Gadali. And it was a nice experience to sort of, I often feel bad because I've lived apart from the reservation all my life, and I don't have the sense of belonging there that I would have had, and that's a great regret. Sometimes the people who have to leave the reservation, they regret it every day of their life. The sense of community and the sense of knowing and belonging is something that you lose, and so that's something that I'm keenly aware of.
Well, part of the common thread that I found in this documentary, I started it, and now there's just shy of 400 chapters, but they get common threads. And one of the common threads is that Indians are still alive and well and still contributing to society and Mother Earth, even today, especially today. And the thing that amazes me about you is the things that you've designed and helped design in your history. You're not just a drunken Indian stuck on the reservation. In fact, you left the reservation like me to find the rest of the world, because you knew the rest of the world's out there. You just had to find it. And some of the things that you've helped develop, like, was it the BlackBerry?
Well, I developed software for the Research in Motion BlackBerry platform. That I was building construction management systems for the building industry on that platform, so that people could make orders from their phone, and they could check off pick lists and things like that. And so that was one fun thing that I got to do. And I've gotten to, currently I'm working at a company where I write software that looks for evidence of fraud, terror financing, and money laundering in bank transactions. And so we write software that allows people to detect those kinds of fraud and to manage investigations of people, and be able to report that there's a problem.
Wow. Now the next two questions are very optional. You don't have to answer. But what's been the best moment of your life?
Wow. The best moment of my life. I think my favorite things have been my family. Pretty much every moment that I get to spend, with my parents and my cousins and my aunts and my uncles and my children. So I think some of the best moments that I can think of are the ones that I spent with, my family and my children, and even in a very strange way, I lost a daughter who died when she was 4 months old, and getting to spend those 4 months with her was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
And she left a lasting impression on everybody that she'd come in contact with too.
Right. So, and I have much more joy about that. That's more of a best moment than a saddest moment.
Right.
And sometimes it's maybe how you look at the things that happen to you inform your experience that are the most important.
Now, what has been the worst moment of your life?
I think at the same time, having one of your children die before you is the worst thing. It's the worst case scenario. And that it's definitely something that I've had a lot of trouble with. The death of my brother-in-law. There are a lot of people that have left, and what I take away from that is that we need to spend so much more time with the people that we love and really appreciate them when we have them.
And we would have mentioned her name.
And our daughter Maggie.
Yep.
Was
now,
her name was Margaret Rosemary O'Brien.
Now the question I've been dying to ask you is, how do you feel about being Native or Indian or half-breed or whatever they want to call you? They can call me anything they want because I know who I am. Doesn't matter anymore. I was called Papoose in high school. Anyway, how do you feel about being Native?
I feel in a lot of ways, because I grew up in the military as a child of an Army officer, that it was a little bit of an ideal world. There was really not much racism. There was, so I didn't experience people who cared one way or another what race I was, and being able to pass for white. Nobody gives you a hard time unless they happen to know that you're Native.
Yeah.
But inside, and I think you look at the world with a little bit of a perspective of an outsider. And there are certain things, like when I see people arguing. I wonder, why can't people listen instead of talking? When you're having an argument, the most important thing is to learn about the other person. And so there are little cultural things that I picked up from my ancestors that, you know, I'm keenly aware of the culture being different. And so I've also kind of gotten off the track. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. We're going to lose our light here, but we're going to stop this interview and continue on in somewhere with a little bit better light.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.